And happy Friday, folks. It's Friday afternoon. It's been a lovely day out there. I've just come online. Going to talk a little bit about the NRLA and the Renters' Rights Bill. I attended a webinar yesterday which was held by the NRLA, and they had their policy experts there speaking, and someone from the lenders, representing the lenders group and stuff like mortgage lenders, etc. If you didn't know, the NRLA have been pushing the Lords to bring in amendments to help balance this Renters' Rights Bill, so it doesn't. There's a better balance in. It doesn't really overly favour tenants over landlords. They want to bring a bit of parity there. Unfortunately, the news we got was pretty dire that most of the amendments are being rejected. Nothing really significant came out of it, though they did reckon that there was some sympathy from the government for some of the amendments, and they may be going back to look at jigging the bill themselves. However, the vast majority of amendments fell, and there's nothing significant there at the moment that as if will protect landlords any more than what was there before. One thing that they did say the government had sympathy for was, and I'll comment, there's an article here, so I'll actually talk about the article first. I'm looking at Landlords today, so this is their article, all credit to them and the guy who wrote it. I think it's Graham Norwood. Generation Rent is an activist, and they've written an article about this. So Generation Rent is an activist group for tenants, and they want to make it easier for tenants to trigger rent repayment orders by complaining about landlords. In a controversial statement, it says, with new database of landlords being introduced by the Renters' Rights Bill, we're concerned that thousands of criminal landlords would dodge the government's new rules, unless it's made easier for tenants to claim refunds by reporting them. Now, there's a thing here, isn't there? So if they're dodging the government's rules, it's going to be a long, and then criminal landlords, it's going to be a long-winded way of doing it. Because you've got to, first of all, you've got to prove they're a landlord, etc., and go through that. Whereas the landlords that are legit, playing by the rules, they'll be on the this government database of landlords, which I don't particularly agree with, but there you go. So they want to make it easier for tenants to claim rent back. Now, they haven't differentiated and said we want to make it easier for tenants to claim rent back from criminal landlords, saying from landlords. So they're lumping them all together. They're doing a typical political trick, I suppose. You're lumping everyone under the same umbrella, casting them coat them with the same brush, if want of a better word. And they're expecting to get backing in Parliament over this. They're expecting backers in Parliament to put last-minute amendments to the bill to make it easier to take more from landlords via the RRO system. Now, this is where it comes into what I was talking about with the Renters' Rights Bill. Now, Generation Rent's research into the issue appears to be confined solely to London, so they haven't done a countrywide survey. And it says landlords committing housing offences are just as likely to get into trouble as a result of tenants claiming rent back as local councils fining or prosecuting them. I don't know the background of it in London. I'm not based in London. I'm based in the northwest. I'm based in Wirral, Liverpool City region. However, what I would say is, if you're just researching one area, that's not a country. It's not a cross section, is it? However, anyway, I'll go back to what I meant. So what they do is they want to make it easier for tenants to claim money back off landlords via this rent restoration order, etc. Now, the issue with this that's been raised by the NRLA is that if you make it easier for tenants to claim rent back, I'm not saying they shouldn't, there may be a situation where they should claim rent back, the amount of people doing it potentially will break the system. The infrastructure has not been put in place to manage this amount, or the potential amount of complaints that will come forward. And what they're saying is, the NRLA has stated needs to be a screening process in place before it goes to court or whatever to see if these claims have merit, because you will get spurious claims. People will try it on as a way of not paying rent. We know our vast majority of tenants are good and they pay the rent on time, just as the vast majority of landlords are good and pay their rent on time. However, there are that minority that will take the wee-wee. I mean, take the piss, sorry. Get it right. Now, if you've ever tried to claim money back off a tenant when they've left your property for the tenant deposit scheme, it's a bloody long-winded process. So how about making it easier for landlords as well to claim money back off tenants? Now, I'm saying this because this happened to me. We just had tenants move out of one of our properties in March. They'd only been in there 12 months. And the property had been fully refurbished beforehand, redecorated, new door furniture, etc. They've moved out, and I was left with, I think, a bill for about £1,200 in repairs, including a cracked, large double glazed unit, which somehow they managed to crack. They need to redecorate because they painted a wall black, even though they said they were going to put it back how it was, they didn't. And quite a bit of other stuff. So there was £1,200 of repairs. I got no problem paying for a deep clean, by the way, after a tenant's been there. That's just part and parcel of it. I don't expect a tenant to pay for that. We do that. However, if I've redecorated a house 12 months before and made sure it looks nice and it's there for the tenant, it's good for the tenant, I expect it to be handed back 12 months later in a pretty similar condition, and it wasn't. And getting the money back off the tenants, we initially managed to get £240 back off them. We've since got another 350. Still leaves a couple of £100 there, which I don't think we'll see. But as you can see, that really hasn't, that's only sort of half mitigated my costs there. So is that fair? No. And yet you want to make it easier for tenants to complain about landlords. So anyway, there needs to be a screening process. The government rejected that amendment that we tried to put in place. The NRLA tried to put in place. However, there was sympathy for it, and they need to go back and they're going to go back and look at it. Like I said, that was pretty dire stuff. God, yes, yeah. An hour spent listening to this. Now, the good thing that came out of it, saying good thing, was they had a representative there for mortgage lenders. I think it was Lloyd's, and she was really good in saying that mortgage lenders don't see a problem with the Renters' Rights Bill as affecting lending. So you'll still be able to lend on the properties. They don't see it impacting that side of it. So that was a good little bit of news. But in general, it wasn't brilliant, to be honest with you. So that's a little bit of an update. And I think looking at the likes of generation rent, etc., that are coming up with these, let's make it easier for tenants to claim off the landlords thing. There needs to be a bit more balancing out here, and we need to keep our eyes on this, and we need to be able to move and react to any changes as soon as they happen. Don't forget, it's got, I think it's 2 more readings in the Lords, the bill. Then it goes, they do the revision with the amendments. Then it gets bounced back to the House of Commons. It's what they call the ping pong process. So the House of Commons will look at it. If they like it, they'll go for it. If they don't like it, they'll remove the amendment and send it back to the Lords. And this could happen numerous times. And we don't know when it'll become law or when it'll be passed. Potentially the House of Commons could be, it could be the end of June. Don't forget there's a summer break for the Parliament. So it could be at the end of August, being in September. Might get somewhere near. And when it gets passed, it doesn't instantly become law. There has to be like a bedding in process. So just because it's passed doesn't mean it's law. Now, the other thing that popped up, and I'll just quickly mention this, was if you have served a no-fault eviction before it becomes law, you should still be able to continue with that no-fault eviction notice that you've applied for 3 months after the bill passes. I have to double check on it, but that was my understanding from this webinar yesterday. So let's keep our ears and eyes open. Give me your thoughts down below. Did I mention I've got a podcast? I try to mention it every time. I've got a podcast called Efficiency in Property Investing, where we discuss stuff like this, and we discuss stuff for new investors, new property owners, new landlords. We go through legals, we go through efficiency, we go through how to find your solicitor, how to find your accountant, how to find a good electrician, etc. And we got loads of different episodes. Audio, solo content only, nice bite-sized 10 to 15 minute episodes, ideal for your commute to work, walking the dog, etc. So I'll put a link down below. Efficiency in property investing. New episodes out every Monday. Please like, subscribe, and share. Costs absolutely nothing to share, but means a huge amount to me, and I'm really grateful for any support. So, with that said, I'll leave you to enjoy the rest of your evening. Have a great evening. Have a great weekend. I'll see you next time.